Isn't it wonderful that we expect to feel inspiration, and today we can see and hear inspiration? Woo, again. She's good to look at even when she's moving a chair. I'm Tim Wright. If you don't know, I'm Tim Wright. And Reverend Cherie asked me just a minute ago, she said, "Do you want me to introduce you?" And I said, anybody here who doesn't know me doesn't deserve to learn about me, because they'd probably want to leave. No, anyway. I said, no, you don't need to introduce me. But I do want to share with you the fact that I'm really sorry that Reggie Strickland is not here. He's our do-all and be-all, both in the office and in terms of what he wears as a member of Celebration. And he does the order of service and sends this out, and I got it. And it's 22 minutes, sermon talk, Reverend Tim Wright. Now, I'm married to a retired reverend, and she was the first one to point that out. It says Reverend next to your name. I'm obviously not a reverend, but I will tell you that I'm substituting instead revel. Not rebel with a B, but revel with a V, which means to know delight and joy and even to express it. Because I am reveling in today. Thank you. So no, I won't ask Reverend Cherie to introduce me. I will tell you that I'm not especially mechanical, and if this doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it does. It does. I know. This is the title, The Road from Transition to Transformation. And notice, too, that Cindy and I, and Cindy, wave your hand so that people will know, because I'll talk about Cindy probably a lot, because I love her so much, and she's yeah, I do. She and I returned on Thursday from 10 days, 9 nights in Tuscany. I know. It was today, and I got to tell you, it was the lesson that brought me back. Otherwise, I'd still be eating gelato in Tuscany. But then this morning, I got the honor of playing. What do you do? Do you ring a bowl? Do you play a bowl? And I was more nervous doing that than I am doing this. I thank goodness I didn't break it, Dad. I know, like you said. But you will see some of the pictures that we took during our time up there. I'm not going to talk a great deal about Tuscany. Instead, I want to share with you some stories about transition and transformation. And in order to do that well, we need to get clear on what they mean. And I will let you read that, assuming that you can see it, because they're not the same thing. We very often equate transition with transformation. Transition is the journey. Transformation is the destination. Think about that difference. Having just come back from Tuscany, I got to say, I loved the journey. It was a great trip over. The flight was easy and fine. Coming back, I got to watch 3 black and white movies, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Dr. Strangelove, and Sunset Boulevard. Almost all of those movies are older than I am, but none of them are older than I am, actually. And that was a wonderful opportunity to make the transition, to get ready to be in Tuscany, which was truly, for me, never been to Europe before, a transformation. And that's really what I want to share with you. And let me just tell you this. I'm going to tell you a whole lot of stories, 3 specifically. It'll seem like a whole lot because I tend to drag a story out. But the thing is that they are stories about me, not because I want you to know about me. You know, they say, and professional speakers, psychologists talk about the importance of a story because a story allows us to identify, it allows us to feel secure, it allows us to know that we can work something out. It's not why I'm telling you the stories. I'm telling you the stories about me, and I will keep them brief because I'm not that important. I believe that the purpose of a story and sharing a story is that it allows you and you and you and you and you, as you're hearing the story, to think, hey, that reminds me of your own story. And that's what I want to have happen. I'm going to share my stories in an abbreviated sense because I want them to spark your stories. And at the end of the service, and even after in the foyer, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do with your stories. I taught 7th grade for 13 years. I still give homework. I haven't done that for more than 50 years, but I still give homework. I'm almost tempted to say, do you have any questions? Because it's such a tight and wonderful opportunity just to be up here to look at you and to love you and to talk with you. It really, really is. You got to know, it may feel good out there, but it is so much better being up here. Not because I get to talk, but because I get to see all of you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. If you're watching online, thank you for watching online. Come and join us the next time you're in town, the next time you're able to do that. Okay, let's move ahead. You understand the difference between transition and transformation. This is me and my sister, Robin. In 1949, I was the first child to my parents, the first grandchild to all of my grandparents. And for the next 4.5 years, I was the champion. I was the only child, the only grandchild. I was the prince. I was the hero. I learned, although I didn't appreciate it until later, the true value of being spoiled, virtually rotten. When I was 4.5, actually when I was 4 1/3, Mom got pregnant. I didn't understand pregnancy at the time, but I knew that things were changing. Transition was beginning then in my family, with Mom and Dad and the grandparents, and all of a sudden the attention for Tim began to diminish, and for whoever was going to come out of Mom began to increase. Robin was born December 29th, 1953. January 17th, 1954, she contracted meningitis and encephalitis. Transformation began right then. And at the same time, transition was continuing. Sometimes they can overlap, and indeed they did. The result of the meningoencephalitis that Robin suffered was grand mal convulsive seizures, severe epilepsy. And she suffered them for 5 years until the doctors one day said, any one of these seizures could indeed take your daughter's life. We can suggest that she have brain surgery and remove some of the encephalitis scar tissue from her brain. It will probably reduce, if not eliminate, the epilepsy. The downside is that it will probably also leave her significantly mentally, intellectually, and emotionally challenged because of the amount of brain tissue that will be removed. Mom was very quick, I'm told, I wasn't there, to say, yes, we want the surgery. We want our daughter to live. And so they did. And Robin did indeed experience the intellectual, mental, emotional challenges. She now lives at Marbridge Ranch in extreme South Austin on the Kyle border, if you will. She's still 4.5 years younger than I am, but seems 60 or 70 years younger than I am. And it is a wonderful opportunity that I have to have grown up experiencing the loss of my only childhood princedom, to experience the fact that even though I was still important, and I never ever doubted that I was loved by my mom and my dad or my grandparents, I realized that the attention had shifted, and for me, it was a little hard to get used to. It made me be probably more independent at an earlier age than my mom would have liked. It definitely made me more introverted. Can you believe that? I know. It was a short-term introversion, I think. I've probably outgrown that. But it was a wonderful experience to remember, because as I was going through the transition and as we were experiencing as a family the transformation, and I got to tell you, that transformation was a bit awesome. Mom and Dad transformed in very different ways, both to Robin and to Robin's situation, to me and my changed situation. Mom and Dad responded to each other in very different ways because of what they were doing differently in terms of Robin and me and their marriage. Mom and Dad responded to the divorce in very different ways. Dad and I remained friends. Mom and I remained close and tight, and resentment happened in some of those ways. And all of that was transformation. And it was also transition. And then when I was 25 and lived in Connecticut, that was when I was teaching junior high school. Phone rings. I answer the phone. Hello. Tim, this is your sister Robin. We grew up in Beaumont, and so I'm not faking the accent. Everyone except me gives my first name 2 syllables, Tim. I said, hi, Robin, what can I do for you? And she said, you're a teacher, aren't you? Yes, I am. And she said, well, then I want to ask you to do me a favor. What is that? I want you to teach me how to read. Okay. She said, I have a specific book I want you to teach me how to read. Okay. What book is that? You know that book that Graham, our grandmother, always read us a bunch of times about the little engine that could? I said, yeah, I remember that. So do you want me to teach you to read that book? She said, yeah. She said, but I don't have a copy of the book. You'll have to buy one and send it to me. She was in Texas. I was in Connecticut. I did that. I bought 2 copies. I've still got my copy. I don't know what happened to her copy. And we talked to each other once a week for 7 weeks. Now, I would read a page, and she would either read it back to me or she was very good at memorizing. She may have been memorizing. I don't know. But it was such a wonderful experience to be on the phone with her every week and read, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. 10 weeks later, Mom called. Hello? Mom, how are you? She said, how did you know it was me? I said, I've heard you cry before a number of times. And she wanted to thank God first and me second for teaching Robin to read The Little Engine That Could. And that's when I knew that the transformation had happened. That I was able to accept the wonder of Robin and the wonder of what her experience in terms of a transition meant for me and for Mom and for Dad and for Robin. And now for Cindy, who gets to go every other Sunday with me to visit Robin. Today, by the way, was a day that we were supposed to go and visit. Frank, since we have a board meeting after, you'll have to write my pass for not going to see Robin this afternoon. That's the transition. Now, I said I want my story to trigger a story in you. It is. If you have to take a moment to take a deep breath and breathe it out, think of the story in you that reminds you of. That's so much more important than Robin and me. Think about that story. Enjoy it, even if it hurts. Respect it, especially if it hurts. Know that story. I'll tell you what I want you to do with it in a few moments. Here's what I learned from that. And I'll read you the scripture from Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon when he was old. Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. You know, he could have been telling me when I was 5 years old, don't look back to being a spoiled grandchild. Look at the joy that you will have and may not ever understand, or at least not for a while, in this wonderful being who is your sister Robin. Transformation. That's story 1. Story 2. That's me on the left. Bill Chafin, my debate coach in college, in the center, and Kevin Baker, my debate partner on that debate team. This was our junior year, 1970. Actually, this picture was taken in 1969, the fall of 1969. And I put all this together when I was putting these slides together, and I've had this slide for 50-some years. And I'm thinking, you know, I've looked at that picture 200 times for a lot of reasons, some of which you'll learn in just a moment. And I don't remember who was there to take that picture, because that was before iPhone by a long shot. I remember the 3 of us. I remember what we were talking about. I remember hearing Bill and hearing Kevin. I don't remember the 4th person in that room. Isn't that weird? It is. But that's not what the story is about. We went to a debate tournament in Dartmouth the weekend of February 19th and 20th in 1970. We were both juniors. I remember when we were coming back, because it was we went to Washington and Lee University, a university I would love for them to change their name, by the way, because the Lee is for Robert E. Lee, but they don't listen to me and haven't done that yet. But we had last weekend in February every year the fancy dress ball, a big, big party. It was an all-male school and lots of surrounding women's colleges, and it was a very fancy dress weekend. And when Bill said, let's stop in New York and see a play, Kevin and I immediately said, no, we don't want to do that. Even though we knew that we had missed the fancy dress, neither of us had a date, we would get back early enough on Sunday morning that we could engage in some of the after fancy dress dance parties. And we were college kids, so we talked him out of staying. I remember having that conversation as we were passing through New York City, driving over the George Washington Bridge into New Jersey to come south. The next thing I remember was the following Tuesday when I woke up in the hospital, and standing around me were my mom, my stepdad, my dad, Denny, who was my first wife, and Mike, my best friend at Washington and Lee, who wasn't on the debate team, thank God. As soon as I woke up or looked at and saw them there, before I could say anything, my mom said, "Oh God, thank you, thank you, thank you," and almost fell over. And Kent, my stepfather, her husband, caught her before she fell and said, "Tim, we're so glad you're here." Dad reached over and patted me on the shoulder and said, "I knew you could make it, son. I'm going to go have a cigarette." There's another lesson in Dad. Denny reached over and took my hand and squeezed it so hard I almost said, "Ouch." And Mike, my friend, said, "Way to go." And it's amazing that I can remember that because I can't remember the 48 hours before that. I learned sometime in the next 3 or 4 days that both Bill and Kevin had been killed in the car accident. And I wasn't. I was walking around deliriously, and it happened in the middle of the night on Interstate 81. There was ice on the road, etc. We rolled off the road. The car was split in half. It was a Peugeot, which had a single chassis, and that's why. And I was delirious walking around. And my psychology protected me from really experiencing the trauma. It has protected me from really experiencing the trauma for 55 years. And at the same time, it began a transition. One transition was that I missed that next semester at school, and I had to learn to read again. And Mom said, "You know, it's taking you longer to read now than it did when you were 4 years old." And then she said, "Well, maybe I'm just a little less patient now than I was when you were 4 years old." But I learned to read again. I went back to school and all of those kinds of things. And what I realized probably 20 years ago, maybe, when I was able to go and find a picture of Bill's tombstone, when I was able to get a letter off to Kevin's parents, whom I had never spoken to since the accident, still have not spoken to since the accident, although I've tried. And I can understand that they don't want to. That's fine. Well, now they're no longer alive, but didn't want to. But for me, the transformation was realizing that there is a forever. There is an eternity. Because I feel like I know that Bill and Kevin are still here with me, and that whatever happened and however it happened, I'm thankful that I lived. I'm thankful that I still know them, although I'm sorry for the way that it ended. Transformation in terms of my realization, in terms of my coming to consciousness with that. You've got a story just like that. It may not be that tragic. It may be more tragic. But think now of that story, because now you've got two in mind, and I want you to hold on to both of them if you will. And this is from St. Paul. But this one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead. My first 2 weeks back on campus the following fall were very, very, very hard because everybody came up to me to tell me how sorry they were and how glad they were that I was there, and I did not know how to respond to that until a long time later that I was sorry for what happened and glad that I was alive because my psychology was so tightly holding on to my survival, or I was using my psychology to so tightly hold on to my survival. Your story. Think of your story. Hold on to that. We're getting closer to when I'll tell you what to do with it. I told you I would give you a little bit of information about Tuscany. You do recognize that as the Tower of Pisa. They say they don't like it to be called the Leaning Tower of Pisa, because it's obviously doing that. It's kind of redundant to say that. But where I want to start is on the other side at Unity Church of the Hills. It was in August of 2007 that I came here for the first time. Joe Vitale was talking about his brand new book, which all of a sudden the title escapes me, but it was about the Ho'oponopono prayer. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. It was a good speech. I mean, I knew Joe from the professional speakers community that we were both parts of, and it was a fairly good speech, and it was an interesting book. I bought his book. But what I learned as I stood in the very back, because it was sold out, or it was filled, was that this is a place I wanted to be. I knew right then that this was an energy that I never felt as an Episcopalian altar boy growing up, that I never felt during my non-religious time in high school, later high school and college. I was here, and I knew that this was where I was supposed to be. And in the time since 2007, I've watched and loved Unity Church of the Hills experiencing a lot of the same stuff that the Tower of Pisa experienced between 1172, when it was first groundbroken, and 1373, 201 years later, when it was finished and had already begun to tilt. Interestingly enough, it was built in Pisa, and Pisa is from a Greek word that means wetland or marsh. So, duh. At least we knew to build on a cattle farm, a cow farm. That was good, or not to be, yeah, so you know that. And the interesting thing is that between 1993 and 2001, the tower was shut down because what the people had to do was figure out a way to have this monument, this wonderful, wonderful building, part of a three-part piazza in Pisa, to make it popular and important and alive and vibrant again. And can you see where I'm going in terms of the parallel between Unity Church of the Hills and the tower in Pisa? Equally beautiful. Equally powerful. Maybe we don't get the same draw that they do at the tower in Pisa, because we were there on Easter Saturday, and let me tell you, it was crowded. But we have the opportunity and are taking advantage and taking place of that opportunity of making Unity Church of the Hills just as strong as it was, as it can be, and as it is yet to be. And that's what I love about that parallel, and that's what I love about what St. Paul says there. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your affirmations be made known to God. That was the prayer chaplain in me that picked this. Because there ain't nothing more powerful, is there, John, than prayer. Not a bit. I failed to mention, as I went through each of these slides, that there's a buzz phrase on each one. And this is what that is. Look ahead, stay focused, know not fear. It seems to me that that's where we are in a wonderful opportunity, a wonderful time, a wonderful place to take advantage, full advantage of that. To not look back, to not be afraid, to not lose focus as I turn all of those into the negative. They are much more powerful the way they're stated here. Look ahead to what is yet to be. Stay focused on what it is that we want that to be. We are blessed with a wonderful ministry, a wonderful set of ministries, more ministries than I know about until I became a member of the board and started reading the Reverend's report and finding out that there's ministry on top of ministry on top of ministry. We've got like 9 or 20 or 300 ministries, I don't know. And Reverend Cherie writes a report about every one of those. So when I say we've got a wonderful ministry, I'm talking certainly about her and about Graham. But I am also talking about everyone else who is part of those ministries. They are what make us dynamic and great. The Tower of Pisa brought in a whole bunch of engineers and architects to resurrect and to stabilize that. We can do that. But we've also got living, breathing souls right here who can do everything that needs to be done, that we want to be done, to have us look ahead, stay focused, and know not fear. Okay, 3 stories. What I want you to do, what I encourage you to do, what I really, really, really almost beg you to do, and I will be already praying for you to do it, is to share your stories. to talk to somebody in the foyer. I'm going to be standing out there when this service is over in the little bit of time that I have before I have to go to the board meeting. And if you want to stop and share your story, do. But if there's somebody else that you want, hey, that made me think of, or I really like that. And that's a hard thing to do because we think people might not want to hear my story. Yes, they do. We want to hear other people's stories because they make us think of our own. And it's a wonderful avalanche effect. One story breeds a story, and as long as you're fair and take turns, I'll tell my story, you've got time to tell your story. Okay, now it's my turn to tell my story. I'll give you time to tell your. Do that. Take advantage of that. Please, please, please. And please, love this place as much as I do. God bless you. Namaste.